Hello, listeners. Welcome back to a whole new season of IPA Sessions. Today's episode is Rated G for everyone. And kicking off this new season, we have IPA Sessions' very own, the Ericka Page. As we all know from previous episode, Ericka is the composer for the theme music of this show. She's a singer, songwriter, musician, a filmmaker, an actress, and she's an author. Today we get to talk to Ericka as she shares her journey and her experience in creating her very own book, A Marvel of Magick, Madden and the Dark Unicorns of Danuk. So tune in and enjoy. Welcome to IPA Sessions. Welcome to IPA Sessions, a podcast for independent artists. This is a place, as always, where your host, me, Kay Jacob, likes to provide inspirations for practical application and entertainment. And today, we have a special guest returning, someone very familiar with our show, someone who's been on our show before, and someone that you hear constantly in every episode, the Ericka Page, our composer for the theme music. Welcome back to the show, Ericka. Say hi.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me again. It's always my pleasure, yeah.
I love having you on. Thank you so much for all your hard work that you put into helping me get the music going for this show and just your helpful tips and advice. I really appreciate it. You are, as we said in the last episode that you were on, a jack of all trades, really. I mean, you not only are a singer and songwriter, you're an actor, a performer, you do everything just about. And on top of everything, you're a writer. And the kind of writer you are is an author. You have an actual book out there. Can you tell me about your book?
Yes. I do have a lot of loves, and sometimes I feel like I love too many things, and I just kind of should have just fallen in love with one thing, but that was not the case.
It's not how it goes, no.
Yeah, not how it goes. But I do love being creative so much. So all of these creative endeavors really do kind of fall under the umbrella of storytelling, and that's kind of I feel like where a great passion really lies. I do use these different media to kind of express that. You know, songwriting absolutely is a form of storytelling. You know, I'm often writing from my experiences or things I've witnessed or something like that. Acting, filmmaking, that kind of stuff. You know, as well with you writing your scripts and me writing my scripts and things like that.
Helping each other out. Yeah.
Yes, and that too. So with this, literature is such a wonderful media to really just be able to paint such a lovely picture that is kind of not, there's such less withholding you from being able to kind of go anywhere. Even in filmmaking, we can absolutely do these beautiful visuals, but so much of it can be limited by budgets or what's just possible, with the visual media. So with literature, I love that there's kind of like, you can really just go anywhere. I didn't love reading growing up, but I think that I was just such an energetic kid. I didn't want to sit down to take the time to do it. I wanted to be out playing with my friends and stuff like that. So even when I was younger, I would totally, not read the books that I was supposed to do book reports on. I would make stuff up. I would cheat, you know what I mean? But as I got a little older, I really did fall in love with reading and literature and just found some stories that were just so inspiring. Eventually, I decided why not, start putting together something that I would have liked to read or see when I was a child. So growing up LGBT, I didn't always, I didn't ever see anybody that kind of looked like me or like represented me on the screen or in books, or if there was a character, it was often some kind of negative depiction or something like that.
Because we're both children of the 90s, correct? We both grew up in the late 90s or mid 90s.
Grew up in the 90s, but I was born in the 80s. I think we're like the same-ish age. Yes. Yeah.
So we're children of the 90s. I mean, that was our
right. That's
our
when
childhood.
We were like cognitive, yeah.
And you're right. There was we've come a long way, thankfully, because I've noticed now, especially like there's some really cool movies out there and shows that really do a great job of not only having gay character leads, but just how they're presented is really cool. There's a new movie out that Disney did that I really enjoyed, and it has I believe it's a young gay boy, and it's a family story, and it's wonderful to see how like him being gay has really nothing to do with the film. It's just his personality. It's a part of who he is. And I loved how they showcase that, where it's like, yeah, that's, there's always that little small love story going on in the background, but really it's the family story. It's the unity and like being accepted and who you are. And it's fun. It's silly. My kid loved it. I loved it. It was a great time. I believe it's called Strange World. Yeah, it's
I
really
love
cool.
that. I didn't know, but I specifically about that one. But I think what everything you're saying is so true. We are kind of getting to a point where we are seeing either a representation that's very positive or representation that is positive, but it's not even, as you said, kind of like the focus of the story. These are just characters living their lives as any other character would.
Treat it like it's not a big deal, because that's how it should be. You should just be accepted, and it should just be there.
Right.
Nothing taboo about it. And I love
Right.
that.
I mean, as in life, so it's lovely to see these, this culture kind of moving forward. And of course we see backlash anytime there's kind of progress, but I think that ultimately we are for sure progressing in a very good way.
Absolutely. And so you went about for yourself creating something similar to what we just discussed. You made this book, and the book is called A Marvel of Magick, Madden and the Dark Unicorns of Danuk. Tell me a little bit more about this book.
It's a little bit of a mouthful.
It is. It's wonderful because I'm a huge fantasy nerd. So I love that it's like the perfect title. It's like, ooh, 2 titles? This is a good read.
And I thought that maybe that would give, some inkling into what the contents would be. Obviously this is a magical fantasy book, but have always been obsessed with unicorns. And The Last Unicorn is probably my favorite book and movie. And I grew up and I grew up with Legend and My Little Pony and Rainbow Bright, all these amazing 80s and 90s horses and ponies and unicorns. Oh, and don't forget She-Ra. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
That's right. Gotta have She-Ra in there.
So with the love of unicorns and kind of wanting to tell this story and have an LGBT lead, kind of also exploring his life and kind of his place, and the character's 13 years old.
Ooh, that's young. I like that.
Yeah, and I thought maybe I'm hoping that these characters will continue to grow, and I have ideas for other further volumes. But that is an age where we really are kind of discovering a lot about ourselves and how we fit into society and different groups, and we're kind of forming our personalities even more.
And then you have society pushing personalities onto you and having to decide what's actually you and what's not.
Absolutely. And that's the age where we're even, starting to become aware of, perhaps our interests in other people as well, maybe crushes and things like that. And we're figuring
School
out
crushes.
Yeah, kind of that stuff. So I thought that would be an interesting age to kind of begin exploring. And it's been such a wonderful process, but it was so slow to start. I didn't set out to write a novel. This is a young adult novel. It's about 215 pages. So it's not like an incredibly dense read, but it is technically a young adult novel. And I really was just starting out. The idea was to write a children's book. But I would just write like a few pages. I kind of had an idea, and I would just write just a few pages a night, or even just when I could. I didn't even. It wasn't something that I was like, I want to have this done by this date, and I have to immediately hurry up. I kind of did just slowly evolve, and then eventually I was like, okay, well this is turning into something else. This is no longer quite a children's book. We're dealing with slightly more mature material and ideas, and it can certainly be enjoyed by many ages. I feel like even as an adult, there's going to be stuff in there and fun and adventure and maybe some emotions and stuff like that people can relate to. But eventually I had this big book after literally years of writing and not kind of focusing on it as my main creative endeavor. And then I had this book, and I said, okay, well now that I have all of this, I do need to make this a little bit more my focus, so I can kind of finish these last steps, get it out there, do the editing, which, also as indie artists, we're usually juggling many jobs, like I didn't get to just like sit home for like 2 years and write my novel, or a year or whatever,
Right.
So, even the editing process took a bit of time, because you go through I probably went through 10 edits, and
It's got to be perfect.
Yeah, and a varying scale, as you kind of move through the editing process. And you have to find editors that understand your story and that you enjoy their writing and take and understanding of voice and stuff like that. all of these things were like completely new to me. But I think also what really helped me to continue to refine my voice as a writer was like reading tons of stuff, reading all kinds of fantasy, nonfiction, reading just different authors' ways of writing to kind of figure out, what my voice was as well. So it was a wonderful process after all of the long journey of writing and then editing, finding artists too, because I love illustrations and visuals as well. There's probably, I think, 10 illustrations in the book. So
that's cool. It's got a couple of pictures throughout. I forgot a lot of young teen novels and young adult novels do that occasionally, especially like I think some of the books I used to read, around every chapter there would be a cover art for the chapter, kind of giving you an idea of like, here's what you're looking at, here's what's going to happen. And I think that's really cool that you brought that back. That's neat.
I love it. And I had two different visual artists work on the book. One did the cover, and then one did the illustrations inside. The illustrations inside are they're lovely, beautiful pen and ink. They're not colored. They're just that black and white style. I kind of wanted them to have a retro feel, kind of, some of these illustrations could have been out of a book from 100 years ago, just because they're that kind of like gothic, beautiful style.
Or you're just a kid back in the 90s going to the public library.
Yeah. And that style
those old books with those illustrations.
Yeah, totally. And it continues today. Yeah. So Hope Christopherson, she's on Instagram, like look her up, follow her. She's absolutely incredible with her art. And then the cover art, and to find her, I just literally went on Instagram and was like searching for different artists. And
that's how it works.
Yeah. And then for the cover, I had to get a little more creative because the cover was this full color, slightly bigger task to take on. And at first, I did have Hope do a watercolor. Even for all these illustrations, I kind of drew up mock. I love drawing as well, but that's not like my thing, but I kind of drew simple ideas of the, my idea of the depictions and had the artists kind of take that from there and do their own renderings and ideas of those.
Really bring it to life.
Yeah, because that's really their art and their talent. I love that stuff, but it's not really my main talent, but also on the Instagram page for A Marvel of Magic, you can see some of those original ideas compared to like what they turned into from the actual professional artist. So for the cover, I did some Googling and researching, and it was extremely expensive to get artists to do some color renderings these days. Maybe I should have just typed it into the AI thing that's going around, but no, I'm not going to do that, even though it's like $9 and you get these like amazing like pieces of art. But no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to support real artists.
There you go.
So I went on the old Fiverr. And, Fiverr's a platform where you can find artists from all over the world and, pay them what their asking prices are. And then they can, because we can do everything digitally now.
That's really cool. Could you spell out Fiverr for us?
Yeah, it's Fiverr, I believe. It's like spelled like a kind of a quirky way like that.
Okay, cool. No, that's news to me. I think that's cool. I'm definitely have to check that out.
Dude, check it out. There's illustrators, there's promoters, there's just like all kinds of artists and people that do different, tasks and things like that, and
that's
have
so
different
cool.
services. I guess I should say services. And this guy Simone Torcasio, who did the cover, he's in Italy, and I believe Italy, somewhere where it was like his art was still amazing, but his price was just very reasonable, and kind of worked with the budget that I was allotted, and it turned out great. I absolutely love the cover. I think that he did a great job, and I'm not sure if I'm rambling now, but all that to say, this was all like new stuff that I had no idea about that I had to discover because of my love of this literature and this story that I was writing and just the whole creative process.
Awesome. Thank you for taking us through that process. That was very informative. I love it. I learned some new things in that moment. Can you, so you went through this process, you wrote your book out, you found some illustrators, you really wanted to make this like professional. I mean, you're an independent artist, but you wanted to present something that could reach a good audience and people could really be receptive for. So on this show, I like to get a little bit into the finances, especially as an artist. We fund a lot of our projects. So, and you even said yourself, you had to go out and hire these artists to do these things for you. Finance wise, you funded this project. Were you able to get any kind of finance out of it? Did you have any kind of return value for yourself? Was this a financial success, or do you feel like you broke even and you did well and you're just happy to have the product out there?
I think that the cool thing about this is that in theory it's going to be out there in perpetuity, so it can always find new audiences. But as indie artists, that is often a challenge to, once we've created this thing, now how do we get it out there in front of people?
Right.
So that was another interesting challenge that, I'm still finding new ways to kind of get it out there. The book was released in 2021, so it's a little over a year and some change. It's been out for a little over a year and some change.
Still good.
Yeah. So it's still pretty fresh, but I did hire a publicist. She did what she could. I don't know if we were like the best fit. I hired a publicist for the release. So
Gotcha.
We got a couple hits with different, like a Kids Book Buzz reviewed it and gave it 5 stars, by the way, 5 out of 5.
Hey, all right. So you got a 5-star book. and please take me through this publishing process too. Yeah. Please segue us into that.
Sure. Yeah. I certainly wanted to explore the possibilities of being with a traditional publisher. I had no idea exactly how to do that. So I began researching and really there's this like whole multi-tiered process, as you would basically send things to an agent first, and then you wait around for 3 months to just
the good old waiting game.
Yeah, to just
strikes
see
again.
Like if anybody's even gonna like write you back.
Right. Hurry up and wait.
Right. You send it to tons of people that you've Googled and don't even know if they still exist and are like even functioning. But then obviously there are some like bigger agents too, and you don't know where you're gonna fall in or not fall in. So I queried, that's kind of what they call it, sending out queries. I queried for a few months and then I got impatient and there was still tons of people to send it to. But I think that I liked the idea of having the ownership of my material. I had read negative stories about people publishing with traditional firms that, they felt like they didn't get the best treatment of their material, and then they didn't own the material anymore.
Yeah, sometimes those publishers can do their own edits without your permission because they own the rights to it.
Yeah, you kind of give up a lot or all of your creative rights, but if you're lucky, you get on all kinds of book lists and bestseller lists and things like that, ideally. But it's a rare thing. So I decided to just go ahead and release Indie, reading pros and cons of both and hearing success stories like The Martian, which was just like an indie release that somebody released on Amazon, and
then became a movie with Matt Damon.
yeah, it blew up. And
Disney, one comedy for some reason.
Well, I was just gonna say I mentioned as a comedy, which whatever.
So weird.
Yeah. So that I was just like, let's do this. So I then started researching how to self-publish. And there are 2 main avenues to do this. The 2 that I used are kind of like the standard like indie way, I would say, to release a book and get it to like the most people in the masses.
Okay.
So one is Amazon. Might be killing the world and like destroying society, but it was so easy to publish with them. Like I almost feel bad like saying how wonderful their service was, because I have relinquished my Prime and I'm trying to like not have Amazon take over the world, but at the same time their publishing process was extremely easy. You just make an account. Once you've formatted your book, which is also another process in the part of the process, you can take your PDF. It doesn't really even have to be in you can put it into an ebook form as well to upload both, but I think you can even Amazon's so chill that you can even just do your PDF for the ebook as well. And then you upload your cover art, you look on a screen to make sure everything fits, and then you click submit. You hopefully are just about done at that point. If everything goes through, you order a proof of your book, which, costs a lot less than the actual price that other people are going to pay. It's kind of just the price that it costs to make the book and maybe a little extra.
Is it like kind of like a copyright deal too for yourself, just to verify like, hey, this is mine?
I think it's more so to make sure everything looks exactly the way you want it to.
Proofread. I get you.
Yeah, like a proofread. And then, and the copyright, that's another good point. Before I did any of this, I had to copyright it with the Copyright Office, but now I'm jumping all over the place.
It's good to know. No, it's okay. Yeah, please copyright your works when you submit it out there, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that difficult, costs like $50, and you can just upload your PDF or your Word document to the Copyright Office. But then you have to buy the barcode and the ISBN number, which is the ISBN number is one number that every book will have an individual ISBN number in, and it'll be the same on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Walmart and everywhere. That's just like a thing that books have. So that's a whole nother.
No, it's okay. So you submitted this to Amazon and you got your digital format out there, but you also have a soft cover. You have a softback. How did you go about getting that done?
Yeah. So through Amazon, it was extremely easy. You even with the soft cover, you have the option to buy the proof. They literally send you a physical copy out, and it has like a little not for distribution thing over the front, but you still can see all of the content and make sure that everything is formatted and fits well. And there's no bleeds or anything like that.
That's cool.
So Amazon really was super easy. They are probably the number one place to buy literature, hardcover, paperback, Kindle, as you mentioned. So it's really a great place to have your material. They also offer, for the first 3 months, they basically help you promote your book, and you get in their Kindle Unlimited plan, and it helps you get the book out there a little better for those first 3 months. But when you do that, you are not allowed to release your ebook with any other distributor. So I decided to go ahead, and when I registered with Ingram Spark, they are the other, like, kind of rival company to Amazon. And technically you could only publish with Ingram Spark, and even they will get it over to Amazon. But if you do that, Ingram's going to take a bigger percentage, and then Amazon's also going to take a percentage. So you end up losing more money than if you would have just directly published with Amazon. So when I did the KDP Unlimited, I had to then decide to not release my ebook through Ingram Spark right away. I waited the 3 months to let it have its life on Amazon, because they kind of require this exclusive thing to get it into that program specifically.
Okay.
But I had released my paperback with Ingram Spark.
That's cool.
Ingram Spark is this company that they will get it, unlike Amazon, who basically Amazon is your entire retail store. Ingram Spark will get it onto markets like Walmart, Barnes and Noble, and really any
bookstores,
other.
yeah, actual physical bookstores. That's cool.
Well, now my book is not sitting at Barnes and Noble in Los Angeles. It is on barnesandnoble.com, which is, again, where most books are sold, is online. Now, I could specifically try and reach out directly to some physical bookstores to get my book in there. But Ingram isn't the place that's going to get the physical book in Walmart or Barnes and Noble, but it will get you into their database so people can order your physical book. Or if you Google it right now, my book's going to come up on barnesandnoble.com.
And it does.
Yeah.
How do you spell Ingram Sparks? Can you just give me a little bit of that?
INGRAMSPARK, Ingram Spark.
Thank you.
They, on the other hand, contrary to Amazon, again, I wanted to love this company and support it so much because it wasn't Amazon, and it was kind of the only other big contender in this self-publishing world that I was aware of. But publishing with them was so much harder, and so many more steps and hurdles, and straight up bad situations. Their team didn't know the difference between a release date and they didn't know the difference between a pre-order date and an actual release date. And I can literally I mean, I wish I could send the email exchanges that we had, but I literally went back and forth with them probably we went back and forth for 10 emails, and each email, you never can get them on the phone. They only communicate by email, and each email can take a day or two to get a response. So these small tasks can end up taking an incredible amount of time because you're not actually just immediately dealing with the issue. It's like playing the waiting game. It really was.
It's the hazards of self-publishing, the hazards, once again, the struggles of being an independent artist and doing things yourself and having to rely on other companies to help you out. Yeah, it's a chance that you take.
And even more specifically, contrary to the Amazon, this one was just more difficult. But I don't want that to deter anyone. I did get it out. I got it published. The differences in the two companies were pretty big and astounding. But, Amazon is this crazy giant, and I think Ingram is also, at this point, they're pretty big. I think they're bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars per year because they have so many indie books out there. But at the same time, for whatever reason, their publishing process was just a really big headache.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, Ericka, thank you so much for taking us through all of that. I appreciate hearing about your process, how you went about finding your illustrators, getting yourself published, dealing with the Amazon and with Ingram Sparks and all that stuff. But you did it. You got yourself out there. You have a book. Listeners out there, please go out, check this book out, especially if you're a fan of fantasy. Definitely do this. It's a cool book. It's got wonderful illustrations in it, and it's a really great story done by an amazing author. So, Ericka, I want to get into some of the fun questions here. And by that, I mean the questions of all the crap and stuff you had to deal with, the challenges you had to face. And speaking of, I want to know, what was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome? And perhaps maybe you're still working on it. I know you mentioned just recently about dealing with Ingram Sparks through email, but was there anything through this entire process, through writing it and, getting it out there? What was the biggest challenge you had to face?
Goodness, the biggest challenge. It was probably just making sure and refining my story. The Ingram Spark thing still flashes in my head as
all them roadblocks.
It was a challenge, but it still didn't take me as long. I wanted to tell the story that I, imagined and kind of had been given just by life. But at the same time, I still wanted it to be written very well, and I wanted it to be received well, and I wanted to make sure that my story was processed and understood the easiest. So going through that editing process, it was probably about a year of edits. Again, I didn't get to solely focus on that as my only task, so that certainly added time. But even before the punctuation edits and those kind of edits, I sent it to other people that I knew were writers and really loved fantasy and kind of knew story structure and things like that, to get story notes before even going to the actual, notes on the format of the writing.
Gotcha.
So I got some really great feedback of just this part was cool, but maybe, speed this part up, or maybe add a little more here, or, I really loved this so much, but I felt this could have been explored a little more, and I was so interested, those kind of things. And you still take all of that with, everyone's got an opinion, no matter what. There's, somebody's going to have possibly a slightly varying opinions.
Yeah, take it with a grain of salt.
Right. You take it with a grain of salt. And also you decide what you agree with or do not agree with. It might be oh my God, I see exactly what you're saying. I would love to write a little more about that. You're so right. Or, oh, that part was a little scary for me. Do you think that is okay for this age group that you're, writing for? And actually, yeah, I actually think I'm going to keep that in there. You know what I mean? So all of these things with the story edit was, I don't want to say it was a challenge in a bad way, but it was a challenge in that it just took time, and it took reflection, and it took being able to try to step back from your art to just make it the most accessible for people to kind of receive. And that's really what I wanted to do. And it was a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, what most authors, most writers, whether you're doing a book or screenplay or script writing, or even writing music, it's editing, it's critiquing yourself and really going really in-depthly looking at, like, do I absolutely need this? Is this absolutely necessary? Yes, I like it, but is it needed? And that's a really tough question, especially for writers. We love to just put everything out there, and sometimes it's too much and you got to rein it in a little bit. So yeah, I can see how that's a big challenge for you. So moving along, now I want to ask you something that maybe came up that was unexpected, that you had to learn in the moment.
Honestly, the entire process of getting it out there were like unexpected things like throughout. I kind of mentioned that I forgot to say that even formatting was such a big deal. So once you finish, you write on Microsoft Word or whatever your program is that you write on, then it's still not in like the form of a book. So then you have to, and it totally makes sense, but I just like didn't even think about like how that worked, So I had to look at different book sizes and trim sizes and like what are the traditional paperback release sizes and what sizes, typically sell better than other, sizes, and what size felt good in my hand, and you know what I mean? It sounds so funny, but
Right.
so I decided on the 5x8, which is like a very good size, and
Perfect size.
Yeah.
Especially for young teens,
Yeah.
it's that perfect book. It fits nicely in a bag, fits nicely in a carry pack, a purse, whatever, it's easy to carry, and it's portable. I like that.
Yeah. So I had to do that. But then once you decide on that, then you have to go back to your Word file and you have to make sure that there are like margins on each side, which it's not an incredibly difficult task, but it is like a slightly technical thing that if you're not using Word all the time, or if you're just not using, I've used Word a million times and never had to do that, So even that was something I had no idea was going to come up, the formatting of the book.
Yeah. I can see how that's very unexpected.
And getting your pictures in there and all that stuff. So that was one. All that Ingram Spark stuff, and the fact that there were two different companies, and finding what was the best way to release the book. That was kind of new to me. At first, I was just going to release on Amazon. And then as I did more research, I learned about these other avenues. So that was completely new to me.
You would think that it sounds so easy to be like, hey, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write this novel. I'm going to write this story out. So that part is easy. Write it out. Get your story out there. Okay, great. I'm happy with it. I'm going to publish this thing. You would think that all these steps would be very easy, and you're not expecting the little details. So it is kind of fascinating that unexpectedly all these little details in between. Okay, you wrote your story. Did you format it? Did you edit it? Did you clean it up? Did you get the pictures in? All these little details, they just stack up. And so it's fascinating, especially for someone like yourself that's new to doing this process. And for anyone else out there, be aware of the little details. But obviously it's something that you overcame because you had a passion for this and you had a care for this. And I want to ask you now, staying in the same realm of all the stuff you have to deal with, what's a hard reality that you had to deal with and accept? Something that's discouraging that you had to push through and resolve, or perhaps even still you're working on it?
That is a good question.
It's kind of like one of those moments, like it's just a fact of life. There's nothing to be done about it. How do you overcome it?
When I got a review back from one indie Instagram bookstagrammer, they call themselves, somebody that's just like a book enthusiast. She gave the book a good review. It was 3.5 stars out of 5. But it was interesting reading her understanding of the main character. She just imagined him as kind of this, she called him an Achillean white male. And I didn't write him that way. I kind of left his description his physical description a bit vague. I did say that he was kind of small and thin, and I do think that maybe there's a mention of him having dark hair, but it doesn't say specifically kind of anything really more than that. Maybe there was a part. I think I put olive skin.
Well, an olive skin would be appropriate because you're writing off what you know, and you yourself are of a mixed race. Am I correct?
Yeah. So I kind of I think that what I wanted was that to kind of put him just kind of like this in the middle, maybe a lot of people could relate. And, when I read that she kind of thought specifically that he was white, and I guess you can be white and have olive skin, and kind of with all of the other characters, there are kind of more specific and very diverse. There's like a lot of diverse characters in the book.
As you should have in a fantasy book. It's got to be diverse. That's what fantasy's about. It's multiple facets of life and people.
And just even, kind of knowing what we know about representation and the fact that I wanted this LGBT character anyways, I'm not sure. And then I guess even the illustrations, Hope, she kind of drew him kind of as she imagined him. So he does have dark hair, but it's a black and white book. So you can't really, you could kind of make up whatever he looks like, as far as like his colors and stuff. So I think all of that, what I'm getting to is that I'm not sure if I should have given him more of a specific, especially in this day and age, and the fact that I'm multiracial, if I should have specifically kind of given him this identity with his, race. And there's still room to possibly do that in other books.
Right. You got sequels lined up. You could focus on it. Build your character.
Yeah. And, there are obviously plenty of things that he has to overcome with, him finding his place in the LGBT community. He does have a divorced parent situation, and he's a middle child. So, and all of that is not like spoilers, but sometimes I'm not sure if I should have given him more of a specific, racial identity in the first book to make sure that there was even more representation kind of out there. But I do think that I think it's okay. I don't think it's going to the story is still the story. And I think I'm happy with it. I'm proud of it. But that was just kind of, an afterthought that I had.
No, I mean, you're right. It's a hard reality to face is how other people are going to interpret your story, how they're going to interpret your characters. You don't have really full control over that unless you were like super detailed, specific.
Right.
You don't really have a lot of control. And I actually like that you left it kind of vague because it allows readers to maybe imagine themselves in that person. I'm a straight white male, but I'm sure when I read the book that like I can put myself into that character and see how I would feel, how I would react by reading his feelings, his reactions.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a cool thing, but you're absolutely right. It's definitely a hard reality to face when other people interpret what you wrote differently from how you intend it. But that's a big part of art itself. And that's a big part of books, it's all done differently. It's all interpreted differently.
Yeah. And there was even one other review person, it's kind of typical now to put like trigger warnings on your review, like this review may contain horror and like gore, or one person put that, and she was right, but the way she worded it I was like, oh my God, she gave it a good review. I believe she gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but then one of the warnings on it was child slavery. And I was like, whoa, like, wait, I guess.
What kind of book did you write?
Okay. I was like, well, I guess she's technically right. Like these kids do get kidnapped and, they are like held by this like bad guy for a little while until, something else happens. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's technically like child slavery, but the words sounded and appeared so like harsh to me that it threw me off. But then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, well then, Disney movies have child slavery in them, because it basically just means like kids getting like, taken off somewhere else. And specifically with my book, because it was dealing with young adults. So that was also it kind of like it jolted me, but I don't actually know if that even falls into the question that you're asking, because it's
no. Once again, you're right. Once again, it's all in how the reader interprets your work.
Yeah, right.
You put something out there, and you have your intent. You have what you've done and what you've created. Your conscience is clean, but other people are going to interpret things differently. That's just the world we live in.
Yeah. So just making sure that I didn't offend anybody, which I so far I think we're good. And I'm not that the story isn't that it deals with certain issues like LGBT issues, and one of the other characters does deal with some racial issues and things like that. But it's not that controversial of a book. It really is appropriately a young adult book. I'd say ages like 12 and up can, read this and enjoy it.
It's a young adult.
Yeah, but those were afterthoughts for me. Like, did I represent everyone correctly? Is it possible that I could have offended anyone even from not mentioning somebody or something like that,
I know personally from my experience growing up when I was a young adult and would read young adult books. I actually was a fan of Christopher Pike. I liked a lot of his books. He was kind of like the R.L. Stine for teens.
Yeah.
And I liked that he wrote these things that would challenge my imagination and they would challenge my feelings and my thoughts. And I think you presenting something for someone else, yes, you did your best to try not to be overly offensive, but at the same time, you need to engage your reader. And sometimes you've got to take them down a path that might be unsettling. And if you can grip them in that story and have them really want success and have them really, I guess the word is adapt to your character and love your character and all the other characters in the book, you've got to give them challenges to face. You got to give them sometimes controversy. You got to give them sometimes bits of offensive content that they can overcome. And I think that's a cool thing.
100%.
Personally, I like when a book can challenge my way of thinking. I still know who I am. I still know how I feel. But at the same time, I don't mind something that challenges me.
100%. And I think that ultimately being exposed to these new ideas, even if we don't end up agreeing with a certain aspect or something, kind of just having that information is a good thing. I'm totally with you.
You've dealt with all of this through your process of creating this, through your process of publishing it, getting illustrators, dealing with critics, having people interpret it. What is to you the most valuable takeaway that you've had from this entire experience? Maybe something that helped you grow and improve as an artist.
It helped me fall in love with literature, like really did. I was already in love with literature. As I said, I kind of began to, enjoy reading kind of as I started getting into my 20s and things like that. And when I was younger, I was kind of like I was like too cool and, didn't want to take the time to do it. But it really did make me love literature in a new way of really listening. We're not listening because we're reading, but like paying attention to the voices of authors and establishing my voice, and also starting this book and then seeing, even before I got into the editing process, but seeing the writing at the beginning compared to some of the writing at the end, because it did take such a long time to kind of, piece this together. And I specifically took my time with it. It was so interesting. As I said, the book was going to start as this even more youthful book, kind of a children's book, and then developed into something a little more mature. So it was interesting to even see how I had kind of found my voice as a more serious author as I had continued to write. But also throughout that process of writing, I was reading all kinds of books. Because sometimes I do stand and work and I have a lot of downtime, and you know how that goes.
I know what that's like. Yeah.
But then also to really get inspired and see what other professionals were doing, and to hear what it was even like to understand tones of books and voices of artists and things like that. And one author can write two books that have completely different tones, you know what I mean? But I think that it's more about, with your specific, whatever story you're working on at the time, kind of figuring out what you want the tone and voice of that story to be. So that it was like falling deeper in love with literature,
I think having an experience through your art that allows you to grow even more is a wonderful takeaway. I think that's a very valuable takeaway. And I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Well,
and I kind of, we talked about, I'm sorry.
No, thank you. That's all I was saying. Thank you.
You're welcome. And, we talked about a little bit ago, the unexpected, but this time I want to ask you about the expected. What did you want from this entire project?
I wanted to write a story that I would have really loved when I was younger. And I do think that I accomplished that. But within that desire was the desire to write this for other kids like me, So it was a desire to share an LGBT story. It was a desire to share a story specifically for kids who might not have felt like they had representation, or, young people that felt like they might not have representation. And I think that there was also a bit of a, these characters are all their own characters, but I think that I would be lying if I said that there wasn't some bit of, therapeutic thing for me as I was writing as well.
Maybe some bit of yourself in these characters spread out.
Sure. I think no matter what, as an author, we're probably writing a tiny bit of ourselves in most of our characters. Like maybe there's, some really kooky, crazy character that you don't have anything in common with, but maybe even that character you do.
Or maybe it's you on a bad day.
Right. So I think that all of those things, wanting to share this with kids who might feel underrepresented, but then I'm sure I also, I know that I've gotten some good therapeutic writing vibe, chill, out of this, but I'm sure ups and downs because we have just gone through how it was also difficult, but the actual writing process, was good.
Great. I'm glad that you got out of it what you wanted, because I think you have put something out there that can help other people, especially younger children. In today's society, it's much easier than it was before, but that doesn't mean that it's actually easy.
Sure.
I know, because I have a lot of friends I grew up with. I have family members, people in my life who I care about, that for the most part, especially at the age I am now, I'm just now finding out some of them have, lived in the closet, have dealt with these issues for a long time. And
exactly.
If only they had someone like you to have given them a book, some kind of, outlet to have read earlier, it might have helped them along. And I think that's wonderful what you're doing and what you did.
Thank you. I think you're absolutely right, especially with our generation. But I do have to read a little statistic here, which reminded me of why we still need to keep writing positive LGBT characters. This is from 2020 and 2021 through 2020 through 2023. Basically,
Gotcha.
like CNN, ABC, Forbes, we still have young LGBT people in great numbers being bullied, attempting suicide, not finding acceptance at home with their parents. So these things are not things of the past. Yes, we have gotten marginally better. So we still do have a large problem with acceptance of LGBT people. And obviously we're seeing tons of anti-trans bills targeted at adults and tons of youth, and at their parents that are supportive, encouraging them to basically not be supportive of their children. Even proposals of putting parents and doctors in jail for offering supportive, gender affirming care, which I honestly only wish that I had the opportunity to have when I was younger. We still have a lot of work to do. And that was another wonderful thing, I think, that I wanted to come of this book, is just more representation for these young people, and really just people in general, who we are still going through a lot of negativity, unfortunately. And again, that statistic is 1/3 of LGBT people have, attempted suicide. You just mentioned friends in their adulthood who are just coming out because of their trauma of, not being accepted. So,
and look, there's people out there too, like myself. We're not necessarily homophobic. We're not, hating or unsupportive.
You're an honorary member of the LGBT community, but you're like,
well, thank you.
You're like the best ally. You're not in the LGBT community, but you know what I mean. You're like such a wonderful ally. Yeah.
And I appreciate that. But at the same time, I have to be honest. I'm not perfect. I've had to learn. I've upset people. I've made mistakes. Even today, even recently, I have put my foot in my mouth at times where it's like, oh, I realize how that sounded. I'm sorry. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to just say, I'm sorry, and move on and progress together. Be supportive. Change. Every day we change to be better than the day before. And that's all you can ask for. So I really appreciate what you've what you've done for me personally on my show, for IPA sessions. I appreciate what you've done for your own community out there with your artwork and with your music and with your books. Please keep doing that. And I want to ask you, and maybe you've answered this, but you do all this amazing work. What drives you, Ericka? What's your motivation?
That is a great question. I'm going to just dovetail what you said, though. I think that everything you just said about the possibility of being misunderstood, but having love and good intentions in your heart, I know that there is controversy about that, but I think that what better thing to do? How can you possibly have a better outcome once we've stuck our foot in our mouths on accident, but we didn't have the intention of hurting or offending, and in fact love or respect this person? The only thing and the best thing you can do is just express, hey, I made a mistake. That wasn't my intention, and that your intention was not that, and that you absolutely love and respect that person. I think that is an absolutely acceptable and wonderful thing to do. There's a lot of new terminology, and even being transgender, although it's existed, we're seeing a lot of new people find themselves and discover themselves recently. So there's a lot of new information. So we're all possibly going to have to get used to this new stuff.
Yeah, we're constantly evolving as a society and as people.
So I do think intentions matter. And I think that I'm sure I've offended people on accident, of all, it doesn't matter what their, shape, size, color, any of that stuff. So I think that you are absolutely right. And as people, we also have to try to not be offended, even though there are mean, shitty people that can be very offensive. I think that ultimately we, especially to somebody like you, who is so, again, it's such a wonderful ally. Yes. I think that, absolutely. That is, we need to reach a kind of across the aisle and try and make the best of these new situations, and try not to get offended when somebody really is trying, they just make a mistake. Okay. Now,
that being said,
what drives me and inspires me? I'd say, really, I love storytelling, but I still, at the same time, I think that living in this world and in society, we also have to find a career that we love and find a way to, in some way, make some kind of income so we can survive. So I think that it's those two things. It's coupling the fact, or it's coupling all of these things, my obsessions, my loves, my things that I dream and think about anyways. And
it encompasses you.
Yeah. And then trying to couple that with a way to obviously make a living, but doing that in still such, hopefully, a positive manner that is bringing new information in good ways and new experiences and sharing new characters and new magic and all kinds of new ideas, and just and hopefully trying to be inspiring as I was inspired.
That's right. Be a marvel of magic yourself.
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ericka. I have one last question for you. And I know you said a lot and you've had a lot of great things to say throughout this discussion, but is there any advice that you can give to anyone out there looking to maybe do what you do as an author? Is there any advice you can give them?
Yes. One, just start writing. Even if you, as I said, there were times when I wrote a page a day, or wrote 5 pages a day, or, wrote a couple pages and then didn't, and then skipped a day, but just start writing. As I said, even from when I started the book to the end, it's such a difference in my ability as an author. So you are going to get better, but also read everything, read different artists, authors' ideas and takes, read fiction, read nonfiction, read what you're interested in, and really get into the English language and get into the prose of how wonderful you can you really can just go anywhere with your writing. There's no holds, there's nothing you can't do with literature. You can really just go anywhere with it. So let yourself just get crazy and just start writing and read a lot.
I love that. I love that. That's great advice. Ericka, once again, as always, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your personal journey with us, your experience. Thank you for giving us a good conversation about, the struggles for the LGBTQIA community, I believe.
We're going to have the full alphabet in there eventually. But
that's right.
Yes.
You know what? A to Z, you deserve the full alphabet. Your community deserves it. Everyone deserves it.
Everyone.
I really appreciate you coming on. And once again, this is a show about you. This is a platform for you as the artist. So I know you've been speaking this whole time and you've had a lot to say, but I just want to give you a moment to say more. And also I realized in our excitement during this conversation, I don't think we actually got a synopsis of your amazing book. Now, once again, the book is called A Marvel of Magick, Madden, and the Dark Unicorns of Danuk. Can you give us a brief synopsis and then where we can go to find that book, how we can support you, and anyone that wants to just reach out to you?
Yes. The book is about a young middle school boy named Madden, and he thinks of himself as a bit of an underdog. He doesn't have a lot of confidence, So this story really is about him and his journey to kind of finding self-love and discovering how much more there is to himself, and the fact that he is so powerful and that he has more to offer than he ever imagined, but done through a fantasy landscape. And he also, throughout this magical journey, he's also kind of learning and discovering about himself where he fits in the LGBT community as well. So there's kind of like a double, life discovery kind of adventure going on.
I'm getting really deep for this young adults. I love it.
And lots of magic and unicorns. So
hey! That's how you do it.
And you can find the book. Please go to barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. You can just Google it. Go to my website, amarvelofmagic.com. And please follow it on the socials. Follow A Marvel of Magic on Instagram and Twitter and Goodreads. And if you have yourself read the book, or if you're interested in reading it, please check it out. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a review as well on Goodreads or Amazon or wherever you have acquired your copy.
That's right. Rate and review. It goes a long way, especially for artists, especially for people on platforms. Ericka, thank you so much for sharing today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful. I really appreciate it.
For my listeners out there, I hope you guys found some inspiration. I'd honestly be shocked if you didn't find anything inspiring or encouraging with this conversation today that I had with Ericka. But please do yourself a favor. Go out there, check out her book, check out her music, follow her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok now. Just like this show itself, we have a YouTube and a TikTok. You can find us all there. The Ericka Page. And I just want to say to everyone out there listening, please be kind, love one another. Don't be ashamed if you make a mistake. Apologize, move forward, be better every day than you were the day before. And there's nothing wrong with personal growth and growing with the people you care about. Yeah. So until next time, everyone, stay golden. Thanks for listening. Please be sure to rate and review and click that subscribe button for new bi-weekly episodes. As always, the theme music is provided by The Ericka Page. Follow us on social media at IPA Sessions Podcast. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now we have a TikTok and YouTube. All information and links are in the show notes. So show some love and support for these amazing indie artists. And if you'd like to come on and share your journey as an independent artist, reach out to me via email at ipasessionspodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, I hope you found some inspirations for practical application and entertainment.